Okay, good morning. Welcome to the FCCJ. I'm Andy Sharp. I work at Nikkei Asia. Just a quick small point before we start. The notice of the release here calls it the government in exile. The NUG would prefer that we didn't use that term because the acting president, prime minister, and other ministers remain inside Myanmar. So they prefer terms such as parallel government or waiting government or similar terms rather than government in exile.
Thank you.
Okay, so as you are aware, in 2021, there was a military coup in Myanmar, and the democratically elected lawmakers who were ousted after the coup have formed a parallel government known as the National Unity Government, or the NUG. It includes representatives of the National League for Democracy, the party of the deposed former state councillor Aung San Suu Kyi, ethnic minority groups, and various minor parties. Entities such as the European Union have recognized the NUG as the legitimate government of the country. Aung is the NUG's foreign minister. She's currently in Japan on the first visit here by a senior NUG official. This week she's met Japanese lawmakers, among other people, and has urged Japan to increase diplomatic and economic pressure on Myanmar's military in coordination with ASEAN in a bid to end the junta's brutal rule. A call comes right now, as you may be seeing in the news, as ethnic minority groups in the northeast of the country are launching an unprecedented offensive against the military. And insurgents in other border areas are joining in and posing the biggest challenge to the junta since the coup. The coordinated resistance attacks appear to be re-energizing pro-democracy forces such as the NUG. But enough from me. And I'll give you the floor to Aung, who will speak for about 20 minutes, and then we'll take your questions. Okay, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. And actually, Tokyo is not strange for me because I have been here for a few times under the different title. But this is my first trip as NUG, National Unity Government Foreign Minister. I would like to express that the NUG and the people of Myanmar highly value the ties of friendships, mutual understanding, and cooperation that Japan and Myanmar have enjoyed over the course of many years. Taking this opportunity, I would like to share about my trip to Japan briefly. I have met with the deputy speakers of National Diet and members of parliaments and expressed our sincere gratitude for the unwavering support of the National Diet and the people of Japan to the people of Myanmar who are suffering every day at the hands of the military junta. It is also a pleasure for me to be here today to amplify the voice and the aspirations of the people of Myanmar who are suffering and struggling under the brutal military dictatorships. One of the reasons I'm here in Tokyo is that to talk about Myanmar current political update and which is carried by the resilience of the people and aspiration of the people for their democratic future. And another reason is to meet and greet with Myanmar diaspora and to appreciate the role that they are playing in this revolution. So actually in the early weeks after the coup, the people of our cities, our towns, our villages and countrysides with one voice, they said no. This rejection of the junta coup is not driven only by the democratic, political and civic activists. It was still nationwide rejections coming from all social and professional groups, civil servants, medical workers, teachers, female textile factory workers and even railway workers took all streets to protest attempted military coup. The spontaneous and mass-scale rejections of the junta was also generational uprising of our teenagers and students of our Generation Z. Actually, half of Myanmar population is under the age of 30. They have been promising future for themselves during the democratic transitions, and they have been and still are determined not to let military take that future away from them. So this rejection of the junta coups also united the many ethnic groups across my country in unifying vision of the federal democratic state. This rejection and these visions unite us still. It is important to add that people of my country rejected attempted coup with disciplined, non-violent protests and civil disobedience, which led for months. However, the military scaled up and intensified violence and brutality by killing unarmed protesters or by arresting thousands of them and severely torturing them in detention centers. We faced choice to either succumb to Myanmar Aung's ugly dictatorships and let the country and its people be raped for the enriching of the military elites, or to defend ourselves and our belief in another future, a better future, a future in which the people are sovereign. People of my country made decision to defend themselves against military's war of terror. So that was not decision of one or another political leadership groups. This was collective decision of the whole nation. Now, nearly 3 years on from that coup, I am here to tell you that we have not been crushed and defeated, that we are successfully pushing military from more and more territory, and that we still believe. In fact, we know that Myanmar will be free, and the people will be in charge of our own affairs in a decentralized and federal democracy. So out of this confidence has come the resilience that has seen us through years of military violence, of airborne assault on our hospital, our schools, of dispositions and murder. The people of Myanmar have been stripped of the protection of law. The military have hanged those they dislike for no other crime than for the believing in freedom. They choose every day to reject international law and the values of a civilized society. We have endured years of military violence. So that is why now dislocations of more than 2 million people from their homes, and we are still resilient and determined not to give up and confident that we will prevail because we are driven by the will of the people. After ruthless violence, numerous atrocities and crimes, the junta controls actually less than 40% of the rural territory, and very recently it has started to lose the control over the first cities. It faces determined armed resistance across the country. Defections from the military and police are occurring at all levels, a sign of the deep discontent. This military junta does not have control over most of the state's territory. It commands no consent from the bulk of the population. It cannot have any reasonable expectancy of permanence. It has failed every humanitarian and even legal test. The junta cannot even control the spread of human trafficking that is feeding the scam activities that are taking place within Myanmar. So which is NUG one of the first priority even under very difficult circumstance to protect and to address that the transitional crimes and human traffickings and that kind of issues. These crimes are greatly to the detriment of our neighbors and increase the suffering of our people. But military attempted coup is now being undone by the people. This is being achieved through our application of policies ordered towards revolutionary change. This includes continuous diplomatic pressure to isolate the junta. It includes cutting the junta from the international sources of revenue upon which its war machines depend. It includes enabling our humanitarian, health, and education services to expand as the junta destroys those human services that it might have used for the good of the people. Above all, we are succeeding through the military actions of our partners, actually ethnic partners in this revolutionary war. As has been made clear in public statements, these offenses are ordered towards eradicating these military dictatorships. This is the aspiration shared by the whole populations of Myanmar. It unites us in one shared purpose. You will all have seen the impact of these latest offensives across our country. Large numbers of junta soldiers are rightly and properly surrendering in the face of these coordinated actions. Those junta troops deceived by Min Aung Hlaing and his commanders will be treated respectfully according to the international humanitarian law. In the same way, we always respect the safety of diplomatic and international humanitarian staff. This is a shared commitment across all of our partners and has been effective in ensuring that UN and INGO staff were able to leave Loikor last few weeks, thanks to the interim Executive Council of Karenni States, which is emerging executive committee, bottom-up emergence of the administrative council based on our control. And with the revolutionary and civil society organization working on the ground, we are substituting and the local administrations in order to bring and make sure the rule of law in our control area. The National Unity Government, in close collaboration with its partners across the states and region, is now delivering as much humanitarian support as we can. And we are also working to build up health and education services in anticipation of increased need. We seek actually your help from Japan and also, of course, from the international donors and friendly country in this humanitarian response. You will have seen renewed call for aid from many parts of our country. We ask the international community to respond immediately to the growing needs of displaced people across Myanmar. While we focus on our life-saving work, we are also preparing for the transition to civilian rule. The principles that inform this transition are laid out in Federal Democratic Charter. We are fighting to achieve an inclusive federal democracy in which sovereignty belongs to the people of each of the states and regions of Myanmar. We are committed to a future in which all people have an equal voice and in which stability, the rule of law, and respect for international treaty replace the junta's current chaos. Only chance to end this violence and chaos and in order to bring civilians and democratic rules in my country is for current junta to be removed. This is what we are fighting for. And this is the ground that we are working on, and then they are ready. Actually, military junta is ready to fall. The only question is how long it will take for this to happen, and how much more damage and suffering junta will be unable to inflict through the passivity and inactions of our friendly and democratic countries. So to raise the voice and to share what is happening on the ground, I am here to meet with the Japanese government officials, parliamentarians, civil society workers, and civil society organizations and advocacy groups, of course, in the journalists here in Japan. So this is the time for revolutionary change. Myanmar Online knows this, and the people demand it, and I'm here to amplify that demand, and your support for the people's cause is greatly appreciated. And thank you so much, and I welcome the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much there. Okay, so now it's time for Q&A. As you can see, we have no interpreter today, so please, this will just be conducted in English. I don't trust my translation skills. So yeah, please raise your hands. We have some online questions as well. Raise your hands and give your name and affiliation. This gentleman here.
My name is Shigefumi Kitagawa from the Tokyo Shimbun newspaper, a daily newspaper, a Japanese daily newspaper. Could you please explain in detail what you would like Japan to do for Myanmar people, for Myanmar democracy? For example, targeted sanctions or recognizing NUG, stop ODA project completely.
Yes.
And one more question. A lot of Japanese people support democratic movement in Myanmar. However, there are some Japanese who are close to the high-ranking members of the Myanmar military. For example, Japan-Myanmar Association Chairman, Mr. Watanabe, the Nippon Foundation, Mr. Sasagawa. It seems that they have an opinion that the next general election should be held as soon as possible, even under the SAC. Could you please let me know your impressions of their actions, of their behavior after the coup in 2021? And do you have any plans to talk with them or contact them? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your questions. Yeah, this is also an issue, and one of the reasons I am here, because the Japanese government officials and the people, like you mentioned, need to know more about what is really happening on the ground. What are the aspirations of people? Because I have learned that during the time of the liberalization process under the quasi-civilian government, the Japanese government foreign policy is based on the national reconciliations, to support national reconciliations in Myanmar. But after the attempted military coup in 2021, the situations, on the ground situations, rule of the game is totally changed. So that is why this old and, the Japanese foreign policy is not relevant on current Myanmar situation. So this is what I would like to say and deliver the message to the Japanese government. The way they approach in all way is not relevant to what is happening on the ground in current situation in Myanmar. And another thing is that elections. Actually, when we look back to the rationale and the reason that military junta gave is that about the elections, about 2020 election. Actually, Japanese government itself, the person you mentioned, a witness of the 2020 election, which is free and fair. If so, why? Why they are now accepting and advocating for the new elections by the military junta, which is widely, refused and against by the people of Myanmar. So, in order to talk about the elections, majority of the people, the whole nations, will not see election as the way out to stop that violence and to bring the national reconciliations and to bring peace. We don't believe the elections organized and held by the military junta is not appropriate. They don't have the right to convince and organize the free and fair elections. And another question is that if they try to hold the elections, which grounds, on which rules? For example, like we are not going back to the end of the 2008 Constitution. 2008 Constitution is already abolished after the military coup. So that is why election is not the way out for the solutions. Election is not the proper solutions, sustainable solution for our political problem and crisis. We also have our own political roadmap, which is not election first, which is political dialogue and to remove military dictatorship first. And then we will have the new constitutions. That is what we are working together with the different stakeholders. And then during, based on that new constitution, there will be elections. That kind, without a political dialogue, without a political settings and without new ground rules, I think the election will not be workable for us.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up. Have you had a chance on this visit to meet with senior lawmakers such as the Prime Minister or Foreign Minister, or even senior officials at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
I've met some senior officials of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I also share the update information, and I also share about our positions on, of course, the ODA projects, and of course the kinds of the humanitarian assistance needed, and also the I have learned that the Japanese government is one of the main donor of the UN agency. So how UN agency are engaging in our country, and what kind of assistance we need. The way they approach is not very much effective in order to have effective humanitarian support for the people on the ground. So that is fine. We also advocate and we also share our mechanism already set up along with our ethnic arms organizations and cross to consider alternative way of supporting the humanitarian assistance effectively.
Thank you. Any other questions in the room? Yes, please. You have a question? Okay, so you first and then you.
Hi, my name is Peter Morris. I'm a lawyer, but sometimes I write for Asia Times about Myanmar. So the question is, now that it seems like we're in kind of like a new phase of the revolution, there's going to be more and more Burmese military soldiers surrendering, and probably more and more people joining the CDM movement. So I'm just wondering, like, what kind of plan does the NUG have for all these people in terms of like their security and like necessities, I guess, humanitarian aid and stuff for them? So for example, like I remember reading something which said one of the ethnic groups when they captured some Burmese military soldiers, they said, okay, well, our policy, the general policy for the resistance is we take care of them, et cetera, et cetera. And then they gave them some money for a bus ride home. And I'm thinking, well, is that safe for them to go home? Like, what happens when they go home? So that's one thing. And then more pertinent to your position, I guess, would be like, let's say there are high-profile CDM people, such as I think last week there was a press conference with the former police captain, Ja San Han, who he's like high profile, and he said he's worried about his family in Thailand because the regime really wants to get them because he does a lot of like recruiting, basically encouraging people to join CDM, and has been advocating for democracy within the police since before the coup. So he's worried about his family in Thailand. So I'm just wondering, like, is the NUG foreign ministry, do you guys talk about these kinds of things, like resettlement, for example, with foreign countries? Like he says he wants his family to go to Australia. Does NUG talk about these things with foreign countries? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, we definitely talk to the foreign country, especially third country, to receive as a political refugees and asylum seeker. And we even also talk to the Thai government to at least not to send back for those who are refugees of the Thailand territory, because there are many concerns, there are many activists and CDMR, not just only CDMR, but also their family are under the threat and severe situations. So that is why we regularly communicate with the Thailand government, even though they are not properly respond to our request.